Good morning, students. So we have come for the second day of the class. Today we will be learning about active and passive voice. Active and passive voice, as you know, is a very important topic and a topic which you have already studied. So it is in our class we will see that most of the topic we have already studied in smaller classes, and we are going to revise this one. So let's see what is active voice. You have seen here, it is given here, active and passive voice. Let us start the class with a small example. Here there are two sentences given here. Online class helps students. First sentence is online class helps students. Second given here, students are helped by online class. Basically, if you look both the sentence, the meaning is same. Exactly the same meaning we have got here from both the sentences. Then what is the difference? The difference is that the structure given here, or we may call it, what is first one is said to be active voice and second one is passive voice. Why do we call these sentences one as active and the other one passive? So as I said, same thing I have given here. It is saying that these two sentences expresses the same meaning, but in the sentence 1, the form of the verb shows that the person denoted by the subject does something. So what was given here, it is the previous sentence what we have given was that online classes or class helps students. So in the first sentence, if you see about what is called online class, so helps students. Now if we take about online and helps and students, I'm going to just remove it from there. Let's take it as subject, verb, object. Now in the first sentence, the subject does something, that is helps. So the verb is there, active, or subject is as active there, so they are doing something. Therefore, as we said in the second sentence, its subject does something. Therefore, the verb helps is said to be active voice. So when do we say a sentence to be active? As when the subject does something to the object. So in the previous the sentence online class, this is subject, helps students. Now let's take the second sentence. Students are helped by online class. So now here students have become the subject of the sentence and online class, that is object. Now here what is the difference is that we shall see what is given there. In sentence 2, the form of the verb shows that something is done to the person denoted by the subject. Something is done to the subject. So subject is not doing anything, let us call it subject is receiving something. Subject is the receiver of the action. So when we say something not doing anything, we call that one as a passive. Therefore, the sentence is said to be in the passive voice. What is the reason that we call a sentence to be passive? If the subject in that sentence does not do anything, it is only a receiver. So as we have seen here, it is given there that something is done to the person denoted by the subject. The verb helped is said to be in the passive voice. The example was students are helped by online classes. Students, they are the subject and the object, online classes, does something to that one, and or the subject is a receiver, and therefore we said a sentence to be passive voice. So we have seen already what is active, or when do we say a sentence to be active and when do we say a sentence to be passive. So we say a sentence to be active if the verb shows that the person denoted by the subject does something. Subject is the doer, or simple words we shall say that when the subject is the doer of the action, sentence is said to be active voice. And if sentence is the receiver of the action, we say that sentence is passive voice. So here we said denoted by the subject, it is a receiver. Something is done to the subject. So subject decides whether the sentence is active or passive. If it is active, it does something, or if it does something, it is active. If it is receiver, then it is called a passive voice. Just receiving, give more, we will receive everything what is given. Let's take one simple example. Let's say I wrote a letter. I, subject is there. I wrote. The act of writing is done by me, that is the subject. So letter, nothing is there. But when we say in the second sentence, if we say a letter is written by me, okay, again, a letter is the subject, a letter is written. So the act subject is letter, it receives some action from the object, that is me. So we say if a sentence or the subject does something, then it is active voice. If subject is the receiver of the action, we say it is passive voice. So the active voice is so called because the person denoted by the subject acts. This is so far what I have said. So what is that? The active voice is so called. So called means it is called active voice because the person denoted by the subject acts, or it does something to the object. The verb is in the passive voice when its form shows that something is done to the person or thing denoted by the subject. Something is done to the person or thing denoted by the subject. So that is passive voice. So we have come to just summarize what is called in this screen. It is given the summary of what is active voice, or when do we say a sentence to be active, or when do we say a sentence to be passive. The passive voice is so called because the person or thing denoted by the subject is not active but passive, that is suffers or receives some action. So why do we say it is called as a passive? Because the subject is not active but it is passive, that is suffers or receives some action. It suffers or receives. A ball is kicked by the person. Ram kicked the football. The football is kicked by Ram. So in this sentence it goes that one, it suffers something, it receives something. So then we shall see what is voice. Voice is that form of a verb which shows whether what is denoted by the subject does something or has something done to it. So we said about active voice and passive voice. Now let's say active we have already seen. Now what is voice? Voice is that form of a verb which shows whether what is denoted by the subject does something or has something done to it. So that is what is called a voice. Now we have understood what is called a subject, what is called active and passive voice. So separately we have seen what is active, when do we say something to be active. Now we have seen what is voice. So what is active voice? So I hope it is clear to you. Now you see on the screen altogether different topic what I have taken here. Transitive and intransitive verb. Now what do you call as transitive and intransitive? We have come across different type of verbs. Verb forms are there, different type of verbs are there, auxiliary verbs are there, helping verbs are there, main verbs are there. So like that many things we have here heard, and so here we have got something called transitive and intransitive verb. Now let's see what is transitive and intransitive verb. So here it is given what is actually taken, what is verb. So let's start from verb, then transitive and intransitive. A verb is a word that tells or asserts something about a person or thing. Verb comes from the Latin verbum, a word. So Latin word, there is a word verbum which means a word. Now, when we say a word, it has got a big meaning. Meaning to say, it is so called because it is the most important word in a sentence. So that is the most important word. Which one? Verb. Verb decides what type of sentence it is. So that is most important. So verb, we have learned different type of definition when we were in smaller classes. When we were asked what is verb, we have what a action word, such kind of definitions we have said. So now here we said verb is a word that tells or asserts something about a person or thing. Verb comes from Latin language. Verbum means a word. Now, what are different functions of a verb? A verb may tell us something. What are those things? What a person or thing does. So, what is that? First of all, it will tell us what a person or thing does. Doing something. And it laughs. It is an activity. A subject does something. A person does something. A thing does something. The clock strikes. So, what a person or thing does or doing, will be doing, any of those things. So, that may be said by, that may be the activity of a verb. Verb may indicate, so that will be very clear from the verb whether activity is being done or it has been done or it is doing, any of those things we can decide. So, it says what a person or thing does. Second one you see here. What is that? What is done to a person or thing? So first one, what a person or thing does was. Now in this sentence what we are seeing is that what is done to a person or a thing. And it is called it. If we see just like in the previous sentences what we studied, learned today, passive voice, and it is scolded. We don't know who has scolded him, but we know that he has been scolded. So Angit is scolded. The window is broken. Another thing is that window is broken. So what is done to somebody has broken the window. We don't know who has done it, but we know that window is broken. So what is done to a person or a thing? Something has been done to a window. Somebody has thrown a stone or something. It is broken. So what has happened to that? What has happened to Angit? Something has been done to Angit. He has been scolded. Over here, the window is broken. Somebody has thrown. Maybe while playing, the window is broken. The important fact is window is broken. Something has been done to that one. So that is what we said. The second function of verb is what is done. Tell to somebody or explain to somebody what is done to a person or a thing. The third place is what a person or thing is. What a person or thing is. That is, the cat is dead. What is the present status of that cat? Cat is dead. That is what the activity of the verb here. What a person or thing is. I feel sorry. I feel sorry for something. I don't know. Glass is brittle. The condition of glass is given there. It is brittle. It will break. So that is a state of act or something is being. So what a person or thing is, the cat is dead. The status of that cat, present status is, it is dead. I feel sorry. My present condition. What I am now, I am feeling sorry. I feel sorry for something. Glass is brittle. The status of glass, it is brittle. It will, if you drop it, it will break. That is the condition of the glass. So it speaks something. So again, back to one more sentence. Let's see. Let's observe these sentences. The boy kicks the ball. So what is that? The boy kicks the ball. In this sentence, the action denoted by the verb kicks passes over from the doer or subject boy to some object ball. Now where are we moving? We are just moving from one action to another one. Now we have come here something and we said in this sentence the action of boy kicking, he kicks. So when he kicks, what happens? The effect of his kicking, it moves from the person, from his leg, it moves to the ball. When his leg strikes on that ball, then only we said he kicked. He kicked at the ball. He kicked the ball. Now what happens? What he said in this sentence is that in this sentence the action denoted by the subject. Subject is the boy. So kicks passes over from the doer. Who is the doer? Again the subject. From the doer or from the subject, that action of kicking moves from and goes to the next person. That is next person also object. From the doer or subject, boy, to some object. That is ball. So it receives there. So action moves from the person or the subject to the object. The verb kicks is therefore called a transitive verb. So here it is clear what is transitive verb. So when is that? So if the action moves from the person or the subject to the receiver or the object, the action has to move out from the person to another object. So something is very clear there. What is that? There should be something. An object is necessary there. So if there is an object, the verb kicks becomes transitive verb. So therefore we call that one verb to be a transitive verb. So what is transitive verb? Okay, before moving that one, let's see this one. The boy laughs loudly. In this sentence, the action denoted by the verb laughs stops with the doer or subject. I laugh. We all laugh. But this action does not move from when I laugh, nothing happens to the person who is standing in front of me or behind me. There is no problem. Whereas in the first sentence when we said the boy kicks the ball, one who stands in front, he receives the kick. Therefore, in this one, the activity or the action done by the subject, it remains there. It does not pass from a person to another person or a person to the object. Nothing is there. The action remains in the person itself, in the subject itself. So in this sentence, the action denoted by the verb laughs stops with the doer or the subject. It remains there. Subject, here it is, the subject boy, and does not pass over to an object. The verb laugh is therefore called an intransitive verb. So now from both the examples and explanation what was given there, it should be very clear that what is transitive and intransitive verb. Here we said when the action denoted by the verb kicks passes over. So very clear, if the action passes over from the subject to the object, it is called transitive. If it stops, the verb laugh stops with the doer or the subject, does not pass over to an object. Meaning to say that in that sentence, the given sentence, there will be no object. If there is no object in that sentence, the verb is said to be intransitive. It cannot transfer. Transitive, a verb that can be transferred from the subject to the object. So that is the difference between transitive and intransitive. Actions that can be passed from the subject to the object or that cannot be passed. An action that stops with the subject itself, does not pass, that is called the intransitive verb. Transitive and intransitive verb. So transitive verb is a verb that denotes an action which passes over from the doer or the subject to an object. An intransitive verb is a verb that denotes an action which does not pass over to an object or which expresses a state of being. So it just says he ran long distance. Action is activity what he has done, a long distance he has run. The baby sleeps, state of being, yes, the baby is sleeping there, just peacefully sleeping. So that condition is mentioned there. So it is expresses state of being or an action, anything can be there. So there is a flaw in the diamond, it's a being. So something problem is with that one. So that is being. So these are the different things what we see. So transitive and intransitive verb. One more jump over. Now I am taking to another one. We started off with active and passive voice, and then we spoke about transitive and intransitive verb, and finally we have come to objects, direct and indirect object. Now you will see the connection between all the three things together, what is called active voice and passive voice, then transitive and intransitive, then here direct and indirect object. The connection you will get it after this one. The direct object is the receiver of the action mentioned in the sentence. So what now when I said the direct object is the receiver of the action. Now if I said there is a direct object, then naturally there will be indirect object as well. So let's come on to that one. So direct and indirect object is a direct object is the receiver of the action mentioned in the sentence. John hits the ball. Receiver of the action. Let's see what is a receiver. What does or who receives something? So here ball receives the hits. Subject does something. He hits and the object receives there. So here ball is the object. I wrote a letter. Here there is another one, letter. So these things. So direct object is the receiver of the action. So directly we get it and we call it as the direct object. The indirect object identifies the person or thing for whom what the action of the verb is performed. So what is that? The indirect object identifies the person or thing for whom what the action of the verb is performed. For whom it is done. For example, my mother bought me a necklace. My mother bought a necklace also can be said, but for whom that activity is done? For me. So therefore it is said that my mother bought me a necklace. A necklace for whom it is bought? Okay, it is bought for me. So for whom the action is done? Person or thing for whom what the action of the verb is performed. The verb performs bought something. This activity for whose sake it was done? It was done for me. So the receiver there for whose sake it was done, that is me, and therefore that is called indirect object. So we can know that in a sentence there can be more than one object. So one we call it as the direct object and the other one we call it as the indirect object. So direct and indirect object. John told Peter a story. Now the question arises here. The first sentence is given there. Why did I speak of verbs and objects? When a verb is changed from the active voice once again I repeat. When a verb is changed from the active voice to the passive voice, the object of the transitive verb in the active voice becomes the object of the verb in the passive voice. Now we have to get the connection. Why did I speak about direct transitive verb and intransitive verb? Direct object and indirect object, all these are literally part of active and passive voice. So there are many reasons what are given there. Let's see what are those things. So we need object, we need to take care of the object, we need to take care of the subject, we need to see the sentence is transitive or verb is transitive or intransitive. So all those things are required. That is why I told what are these things. Now let us see. So when a verb is changed from the active voice, the passive voice, the object of the transitive verb. Now transitive verb. So that transitive verb in the active voice becomes the subject of the verb in the passive voice. So what was the object in that sentence? In the transitive verb, that becomes the subject of the passive voice. So active voice, it is subject and object is there. What is the subject of the active voice? That will become the object of the passive voice. And what was the object of the passive voice? That will become the subject of the active voice. Since the object of the verb in the active voice becomes the subject of the passive form, it follows that only transitive verb can be transformed into the passive voice. So another important point, only transitive verb can be transformed into passive form. So if the sentence what we are giving, it should be transitive, it should have an object, only then that object can be changed into the subject of the passive voice. So because an intransitive verb has no object, so it has no object, so naturally it cannot be converted into passive voice. That is the reason why I have been speaking about transitive verb. So then we have to find out what is called object, direct object and indirect object. If there are two objects, what will I have to do? So in order to clarify all those points, I have mentioned all these things. I hope it is clear to you. So what is active voice, what is passive voice, what is transitive, what is intransitive verb, what is direct object, what are indirect objects. So all these things has been so far explained. If the active verb has two objects, now again we are going back to examples. So let's say if the active verb has two objects, one direct and the other indirect, either of them becomes the subject of the passive verb. Okay, it is possible, I said, there can be more than one object in a sentence. So that is not a problem for us. So we can select one of them. So one of the objects we will take and we convert that one into subject. So subject of the passive verb, and other remains as a retained object. Retained object. That object means, the retained object means an object that will remain as an object itself. Because we have already said the object of the active voice will become the subject of the passive voice. But in the second case we said if there are two objects, one of them only will be taken as the subject and the other one will remain as it is. So that is called as a retained object. So retained object will remain there, which remains as the object what was given in the sentence. Let's take the example of that one. He told me a story. He told me a story. My mother bought me a necklace. That was example which I gave you in order to clarify the first point what I said. So here also we have got a direct object story and indirect object me. So since there are two objects, it's very clear we can also write in two different ways. How it can be transformed into two different ways. When we convert this one into passive voice, there can be two different type of sentences. A story was told to me by him. So now here me and story. So we have taken the story as a subject here. So a story was told to me. Me, indirect object, that remains there as it is and we continue there. So I was told a story by him. Let's move to the second example. Mr. Roy will give you a present. Mr. Roy, as it is given, it is the subject. That is very clear. Will give you a present. you. What is that? It is the indirect object, and here there is the direct object. So what is the direct object here? A present. A present will be given to you by Mr. Roy. So that is the passive form. A present will be given to you. So again we have taken the direct object for the first, and we have converted that one. A present will be given to you by Mr. Roy. You will be given a present by Mr. Roy. So that is the second one. We have taken the indirect object here. So in both the ways. Now we need to see. Now I have clarified what is called direct object and indirect object here, and at the same time is the way in which we do convert an active sentence to passive voice. What are the differences that has taken place in active voice and passive voice? Now here in this place, Mr. Roy, this is a subject, will give is the verb given there. You a present, that is the object, that is including what is called you, indirect object and direct object. So there are cases in which we are going to see there in which there is only one object. So that will be in that format, we will be seeing that one here. So now the subject has become the object. Both the places we will see the subject Mr. Roy has become the object by Mr. Roy. By Mr. Roy, in both the sentences that subject has become the object. The difference is, since there were two objects in one place, present has become the subject, and in the second sentence, you has become the what is called the object. So a present will be given to you by Mr. Roy. You will be given a present by Mr. Roy. Usages of active and passive voice. Let's see what are the different type of. Why do we speak about active and passive voice? Why do we need these both the sentences? Or is it possible that only one type of sentence is enough? What are the purposes of passive voice? Active voice, generally we use directly, we use the sentences and we use it. So now why do we need passive voice? That's also another question. It is used when the subject is to be made prominent. It is used. What is used? Passive voice. Passive voice is used when the subject is to be made prominent. Made prominent, we have to give stress, we have to give more importance to something. What was the subject and where the preference is to be given, then we use passive voice. The passive voice when the object is to be made prominent. So when we need to make what is called the object has to be made prominent, it is used. I think I said wrongly in the first sentence. It is used when the subject is to be made. Okay, that is correct. It is used. So that time we use active voice and we use the passive voice when the object is to be made. So if you are giving stress to the object, then we will use passive voice, or if you are giving stress to the subject, then we will use active voice. 24 people have been killed in the flood. Now the stress is given for 24 people. People have been killed. Now suppose if you take the object has to be given the importance. So how do we change that one? When the object, the passive voice is used when the object is to be made prominent. 24 people has been killed by the flood. Killed by, how these 24 people have been killed? By the flood. The importance is given there for the flood. Flood has killed. Okay. He hits the ball. The ball was hit by him. He hit the ball. Stress is given here. He hit. importance is subject. Who was the person who has done that kicking or hitting? So here he has done it. Ball. The ball was hit by him. The ball was hit by him. Who has done it? He has done it. Him. So the active voice is referred to the passive voice is referred to the active voice in the following cases. The preference is there. When do we use more of passive voices? When the doer is not known, or when it is intended, when it is not intended to name him. So here I have made a small mistake here. So when it is not intended to name him. So my intention is not, I don't want to publish who has done it. So at that time we use it. So when the doer is not known, unknown, I don't know who has done it. Let's say something has happened there. Let's say someone has stolen my bike. The act of stealing, that is important there. Who has done it? That I don't know who has done it. Therefore I say my bike has been stolen. By whom? That part I don't know. So in that case, when the doer is not known, it is not important. The subject is not very important. I don't know who has done it. Whoever it is, I lost. That is my problem. My bike has been lost. That is the important thing. Therefore, in such cases, we use when the doer is not known or it is not intended to name him. So if that is the case, we use passive voice. The patient was carried home. The patient was carried home. By whom? How it was? No, not important. That is not our concern here. Our concern is patient was carried home. So that is important is that the town was well provided with corn. All what is needed, corn, food grain, whatever be it. So it has been, the town was well provided. We know the present condition, people are running here and there, no food, nothing is there. So but here the town was well provided with corn. What is needed there? It is provided there. So here importance is it was well provided. By whom? That is not known. So the subject is, or what is called the doer is not known. In that case we use passive voice. When the subject in the active voice is clear from the context, another context where we use the subject in the active voice is very clear, then we use the student was dismissed from the school. Okay, it is very clear. The student was dismissed from the school. It is passive voice. Of course, the object is not given there. By whom? It is very clear. Naturally, if a student has to be dismissed from the school, it has to be by the principal. So, the student was dismissed from the school. So, meaning to say that the subject in the active voice is clear from the context. So, that is not very important for us. So, we can start the sentence with the most important words in it. Maybe some of the important, the structure we need a good beginning. So in that case, we may start it in that format. We may use what is called the passive form. In the active form, we may have to use in the normal order. So here it can be changed. A favorable impression has been created by the prompt actions taken by the government. So what is that? A favorable impression has been created by the prompt actions taken by the government. So what? A style of starting a sentence. So these are the different ways in which, or the usages what we see. So we said it is used when the subject is to be made prominent, the passive voice when the object is to be made prominent. So when depending upon the subject has to be given stress or object. If subject has to be given stress, naturally we use active voice, and if object has to be given stress, we use passive voice. Then we said passive voice is preferred to the active voice in the following cases. What are? When the doer is not known or it is not important. Then we said when the subject in the active is clear, very clear. So as the student was dismissed, we gave the example also. In that case also we use it. Then we can start the sentence with the most important sentence or important word what is given there. So that is another possibility for us to use, whether active has to be used or passive voice has to be used. Now let's do some exercises. She buys a book. Now actually this my purpose is this one. I want you to do it as your homework, and I will have to get it when the school reopens. So she buys a book. Let's take one or two examples. Let's see. She buys a book. So that can be taken. A book. How do we change this one? Buys. Let's see. Analyze the sentence probably. Subject, verb, and object. She. Okay. Buys present tense. Object there. So we need not bother so much about that one. A book is bought by her. So we got it. A book is bought by her. This pot contains ink. This pot contains ink. Again, subject, verb, object. Ink is contained in this pot. Ink is contained in this pot. And it goes on. There are few more examples which I have given here. So this you will do it as a homework. He disgusts me. You will notice that all these sentences are coming in the present tense. So you will have to note down this one and you will have to convert that one into passive voice. He wrote a letter. Okay, here it is simple past tense. So naturally this has to be converted into past form. So wrote. Little girl laughed at the beggar. They knew it. Mohan will learn the lesson. So all the forms, all the tenses are given here. I shall write a letter. They did not play the match. Sita did not sing a song. He will not beat the dog. Do you run a race? Did he break the window pane? Will you help him? Who wrote the Ramayana? Now you will see different type of sentences are there. Just future tense is there. They do not play. This you have to pay attention here. Not play. They will not beat. These negative sentences are there. Then few questions are there. Do you run a race? Do you? That form has to be changed. Is a race run by you? So you have to transform that sentences. Then when there is do, did. So that has to be changed. That attention has to be paid. Now question is here. Will you help me? That structure you will have to see what is. It has to be formed if it is a question. Who wrote the Ramayana? If this type of sentences are there, what is the structure has to be formed? Continuous tense. Students are learning grammar. Now this one also I will give you one example because this is changing. That is continuous form is given here. So if this given students are learning, ing form is there. So it has to be being has to be used there. Grammar is being. Is being. When continuous tense is there, if it is present tense, it will be is being, and it changes depending upon the tenses. And he was reading a book, so naturally here it is present tense, so naturally here it is past tense. Was being, it will become. So naturally depending upon that one, you will have to transform all these sentences. Perfect tense, she has done her work. So let's take one example from there. She has done her homework. Her homework, we shall take it. Her homework has been done by her. So you have not broken my pen. Have you kept the secret? Who has done this? Why have you told a lie? All this same process will be there. Only you need to see that here there is questions has to be taken care, and tense also has to be there. One most important thing is that tenses has to be taken care. Whatever tense it is given here, that tense has to remain same. You cannot change the tense of the given sentence when you are converting into passive voice. Verb followed by preposition. She laughed at the old man. He listened to me. Did he stare at you? You have to pay attention to these things. To, at. Very often students tend to leave it out those things. So preposition. So these are sentences followed by preposition, and preposition has to be taken care. And that's the end for today's class. I hope by next class or when the school reopens, I expect that all what we have taught here, the homework which are given here, I hope you will complete it, and I hope you have understood the class. If it is not very clear, or if you have got some doubt with regards to some of the portions what are taken today, you can clarify it when you come. You can ask me or other teachers, or you can verify this one once again. I hope you understood something from today's lesson. Have a nice day.